Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am Doofy, and this is the tier list of seinen things. With me, here's Manga Crash. What's up, Manga Crash?
Hey Doofy, thanks for having me on. You know me, I'm a big fan of elitist manga, and I thought, what better way to appreciate elitist manga than to do a tier list with my friend Doofy, so it's a pleasure.
Glad to have you on my channel.
On a serious note, we're doing a seinen manga tier list. We've collected 69 titles, 69 seinen titles to rank for you guys. In my
opinion, mature number.
Right, it had to be 69. There's only 69 good seinen manga in the world, so if your favorite seinen manga is not here, hate to break it to you guys, it's not good. I guess that's assuming these 69 are good. There's a F tier here for a reason.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. There's no Vagabond in this list, right?
No, there's very much no Vagabond.
No.
Because...
Sorry, Vagabond fans.
Because you haven't read Vagabond, have you?
No, I haven't.
Neither have I. Nor will I probably ever. Sorry, Vagabond fans.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I reckon it might be nice to just say a few words about what it means to be a seinen manga. Crash, would you like to give us a little word on that?
Yeah. So I think it's pretty simple what a seinen manga is. It's a manga that is published in a seinen magazine. So seinen magazines generally are manga magazines that are dedicated towards adult males, like late teen males. And they generally have young on the title. So like, for example, Young Animal or Young Jump. I don't know why exactly they do that, but they do for some reason.
I never noticed that. But damn, you're right, aren't you? Yeah, damn.
I'm always right.
I've never seen you wrong, except when you said that One Piece was the best of the big three, but that's a separate matter entirely.
You're gonna see me wrong a lot in this video.
But yeah, the definition's important because I deal with so many people on TikTok that try to talk about seinen like it's a genre, which is it's such a mistake because they're assuming that all seinen are pretty much like Berserk and Goodnight, Punpun and Monster, these darker themes, really takes advantage of the older demographic, which, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of seinen that do, obviously. That's why it's got that reputation. But you know what else is a seinen? Like Hinumatsu Mari or Dragon's Maid is also seinen. So even though
that's my go-to example, it's K-On!
Yes, exactly. K-On! Wow, how did I forget that? Wow. That's just to demonstrate that just because you can go a little farther with what content you can depict, that does not mean that all seinen are dark, gory, violent, whatever, right? So that's just made sure to make that clear in the very beginning here. Now, as to our the choices here, this list is almost entirely based around what I've read, and then I've asked Crash if he wanted to come on, and I'm like, all right, we gotta throw my man a bone here. So I gave him a few. Look at me, the high and mighty. I decided to let Manga Crash have a few manga in here, but it's on my own accord, and it's only by my own will. I, the superior Doofy. But no, for real. I am thrilled, by the way, to have you on here. There couldn't be a better person to have on here to talk about these manga.
No, thanks. I wanted us to do a collab for a while as well.
Let's begin with the actual tier list. These 69 titles we have ahead of us.
It's gonna be a long video.
Strap in, get the popcorn ready, get a few beers on the go. You might need them by the time we're done this list. So, how do you want to approach this? I'm kind of thinking that the most productive thing we can do is first establish an S plus, and then an F, and then kind of just situate things between them.
Yeah, that sounds good. If we can pick an S plus.
I think there are a few in here for sure. My first vote for the S plus is going to be Punpun. How we feeling about that one?
Yeah, that was the one that I was thinking. Because it's not my favorite Asano manga. I've been a bit vocal about that, but it is my second favorite, and it's excellent.
Yeah,
it's a 10 out of 10.
It is superb for sure. So it's your second favorite Asano work. Yeah, like you said, you have mentioned that quite a bit. Your first then being
Dead Demons.
What is it about Dead You know what? I'm actually willing to put that in an S plus tier as well if you just want to get it out of the way right now.
Sure. You want to know why I like it more?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think because I think Punpun is a work that is made to be like super bleak, and that is fine. That was what Asano was trying to do. He told it in like multiple interviews. It was just trying to be the most bleak manga that he could write.
Hmm.
Dead Demons is not that. I feel like Dead Demons is a bit more similar to like Solanin,
Yeah.
where it's not as heavy, and I think that's not why I prefer it to Punpun, but I think that's a great follow-up to Punpun to not have like another super bleak manga.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see where you're coming
And
from.
the one thing that really sells me on Dead Demons is that it is an Asano manga, where because Asano is like one of my favorite mangaka. It's one of my two favorite mangaka, and he takes a lot of influences from my other favorite mangaka, which is Urasawa, and it
Yes.
feels like a Urasawa manga told by Asano, and that for me is just like the perfect mesh.
Oh, interesting. I've never thought of it that way before, but you know, I'm actually willing to put Dead Demons over Punpun as well, just to piss off the diehard Punpun fans. You know what I mean? Like, listen.
Yeah.
For one, I will actually say I think the art, especially like in these last like 10 chapters or so in Dead Demons, is just the best I've seen in manga like ever. Like, unironically, I think what Asano's doing with that kind of like half digital, half analog kind of thing that he does, it produces the most beautiful and breathtaking backgrounds and full spreads. And I won't say too much about the particular content of what I'm thinking of, because I'm thinking of the climax, and it's just the amount of depth and detail like in this full spread. Like, you can just zoom in and there's just so much to look at and take in, and it's genuinely stunning to me. So I think Dead Demons is the pinnacle of like manga art for me. And like you said, and you said it very nicely in your video on, you know, masterpieces. It's just funner to sit back and read a few volumes of Dead Demons than it is Punpun, because the amount of work I have to put into like reading and really enjoying and really breaking down Punpun, it's like mentally taxing.
Yeah.
I think it's rewarding, but it's just a different kind of experience than with Dead Demons. And these days, I'd prefer, I think, a Dead Demons to just kick back and relax and had fun with that. So
Yeah, I'm not gonna say the luck, but when I first read Punpun was at my most depressed moment, so I could binge it because I was already in that ultra low of lows.
yeah,
But on my second reread, which was a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, man, I was depressed for like 3 weeks for no reason.
like because
It's
of the
just
manga
so
or like
heavy.
other things.
Yeah, no, because of the manga, it's just so heavy.
Dude, I could not agree more. Like, this is why I always talk about how much I love Punpun, because like when I read that ending, man, it's just like it just leaves you so cold. And the fact that Asano can do that with, you know, black and white and still images and just provoke such a strong feeling it's insane to me. Because in my, you know, from, you know, I guess the 170 manga I've read, very few titles have been able to strike me so hard, and Punpun was one of them.
Definitely agree.
Yeah. So easy S's. I mean, I've also done a whole Asano tier list video if you want any more than that, but I think we'll leave it there. Besides, it's Goodnight Punpun. We don't have to say anything else about it.
Everyone knows it.
So let's pick like the worst manga here. Is there any that juts out to you as abhorrently bad?
So yeah, the last one.
Do you remember its title by chance?
Yume something.
Yeah,
Let
Yume.
me-
Is it like Dream Toy Factory in English, maybe?
Because it was the last manga I read. So Yume no Omacha Kojo in English. There's a lot of, yeah, okay, so Dream Toy Factory, yeah.
Okay, so this is like an Ero Guro kind of collection of short stories. And since you've read it more recently, why don't you give us your thoughts and why it deserves the high
Yeah.
F?
I read specifically for this video. So I'm blaming you.
I forced this man to read this shit.
So, I mean, there's something that is interesting about Ero Guro, where about it's so visceral, so dark and gory, the thing about this one is that it is mostly about cheating. Literally, there's an entire chapter which is just facts about volcanoes, but instead of volcanoes, you see like asses shooting. And that's the whole chapter. There's like 2 chapters maybe that are not related to shitting in some way.
Yeah.
And it's something that gets tiring. It's not just because it is that team. It's just that since it's only that, it gets very tiring very soon.
Yeah.
So.
This, I don't know, in the particular ways, well, let me say, like, the appeal of Ero Guro is, like, the interesting ways the mangaka find to just depict, like, the most gross aspects of humanity. And they usually come up with very creative ways to do so, and that's kind of the appeal of it. Like, one could argue that it's for the sake of just being edgy and provocative, but I do think that there is some genuine, like talent and thought that goes into, you know, how twisted and disgusting can I make this, like, in a creative way. So at that sense, I like to actually appreciate a lot of the stuff, you know, a work of art. But this is just fucking vile. I can't get past that. But related to this, there is the Ero Guro you suggested to me when we first met, and that is Shoujo Tsubaki, is it?
Tsubaki.
Where is it?
Yeah, it's near Solanin.
I definitely think this was a better experience than Dream Toy Factory, because I thought that...
Yeah.
Well, for one, I usually prefer, like short... There's a place for short stories, but I generally would prefer, you know, a volume that kind of told one story. And that's you know, Shoujo Tsubaki. It is kind of the life of this girl as she went to this circus or whatever, this very odd circus, mind you. So I like the unity of that, at least. It's not just short stories. That puts it over Dream Toy Factory for me. But the question is, does this pass or fail? And I'm leaning towards fail, but what do you have to say about this?
I think I put it like average. I think it has some really interesting ideas overall. Some interesting visual imagery as well. But it is not the best of stories in the end. I'll put it like a C or a D. Yeah.
I'm gonna drag that down to a D, but I'll respect it enough not to fail. Because like you said, and like with Ero Guro generally, it just has very interesting ways of depicting erotic gore, you know, hence the name. But have you read like an Ero Guro that just made you go, wow, like this is awesome, like something that you gave like a relatively generous score to?
No, I think that one was the highest I gave. I still like reading them. For some reason, I like reading a lot of like that game manga, even though I end up rating them a lot of negatively, because they're still interesting and still fun to read.
Yeah,
so.
I totally get that. Again, like I'd much rather read, you know, a D tier Ero Guro than, I don't know, than just scroll through some average, you know, battle shonen titles and pick one of those. Because at least with these are usually just, they're so absurd, and like they can just bring gore in much more unique directions, and I don't know, they can make it interesting. With an average battle shonen, it's like it's average because it's, you know, just the same as the others. An average one of these is like, it's not average because it's similar, it's average because it's just so different from everything else. I don't know, but
yeah.
Okay, good list.
I agree.
Good list so far. All right, should we just start picking through it alphabetically now, or what are you thinking?
I think it's better. I want to get that first one out of the way.
Yeah, 13 Club. One manga we both read many years ago and probably could not recall a single detail.
No, I remember I think it was the first page where it's just that guy on the cover and another girl, and I think it is like short horror stories.
I think so too.
I don't remember much of it.
I remember not liking it.
I remember liking it. This is the problem. I remember liking it.
All right, what are we gonna do about this? You know, I'd be willing to you know, not fail it. How are we feeling about like in the D-ishes? Because, like, listen, if we're gonna confront the numbers here, I think you gave it like a 7.5. Did you not?
I think so, yeah.
Which is rather like that's like a C, B, maybe even A, considering we have double or S plus here. But the fact you can't remember like almost anything about it.
Yeah, that always makes me kind of wanna drop it a little bit down.
Right. So we thinking above or below Shoujo Tsubaki?
I don't know. I feel like the quality of it was better, but it was more generic, I think.
I couldn't have agreed more. It had a more refined feel to it, but it just, like, again, I think it's just evident in the fact I don't remember a detail of this manga. I guess to be fair, I've also read Shoujo Tsubaki like within the last 6 months. But I'll even say I remember more from Dream Toy Factory, which I read probably in the same year. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'd put it D.
I'll put it there below Shoujo Tsubaki.
Yeah.
Tsubaki, damn. Okay. Speaking of one of your favorite mangaka, Urasawa's 20th Century Boys. So
I mean,
I'm not nearly as qualified to speak on this. I've only read the first volume.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've read everything. The thing is, I've read it like 2008, 2009. It was one of my, I think it was my first Seinen manga.
Oh shit! Nice.
And the reason why I read it was not because I was familiar with Urasawa. Was because I think back then it was the top of the list of the manga that were available in English, like alphabetically. So I just grabbed it. It looked fun. But yeah, it kind of revolutionized the way I looked at manga, because before that it was mostly like battle shonens and ecchi rom-coms and Detective Conan. And then this came around and was like, yeah. It was so much different. And the mystery was so great. I still like it more than Monster, honestly.
Oh, geez, okay.
I think
I'm really interested in, I don't know, I think the design of Friend is cool and the kind of allure around him is pretty badass, but again, unfortunately, I read like one volume in like 2013 and that was it, unfortunately. It's too broke to buy more.
No, I kind of want to start buying the new editions that came out.
Same, actually. I have the first one.
They look so good.
Yeah, they look really nice next to the monster ones too.
I also need to get the monster ones. I only have Pluto, which I'm missing volume 7.
Oh yeah, Pluto's like a bit of a bitch to get the full 8. It's always like one's out of stock, but
yeah.
So where are you feeling?
I'd put it like S or S plus. I'd say that I think Monster is a more solid manga. I think 20th Century Boys, by being longer, it kind of disperses a bit, especially towards the end. But I think the characters and the story are much more interesting and rewarding. So to me, that's why I feel like 20th Century Boys is better.
Okay. Well, let's just deal with Monster then. Are we feeling like, first of all, since I don't really remember much, how are we feeling about like the 20th Century Boys at an S? Is that kind of solid?
Yeah, I don't mind it as an S.
Okay. Because I'm gonna be super protective over that S plus. We got the boys up in here. Goodnight Punpun, Dead Demons. Man, that's for the premium only.
Yeah.
Not to say that.
No, but I'm fine with that.
Okay, so let's just do Monster then while we're on Urasawa, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely S tier as well.
S tier under 20th Century Boys.
Yeah, that's what I'd put it.
Yeah.
Again, it's a 10 out of 10. All of these S and S plus manga, I have it at 10 out of 10, which is not also a score that I gave too much of it. Just that Asano and Urasawa.
Like you said, your two favorite mangaka, so it goes without saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with Monster is, like, when you're reading it, it's just so thrilling, and I think the way that it unpacks the mystery is super well done. What I always like kind of praise Urasawa for is like his ability to like bring in these little side characters, and they contribute to the mystery in a really interesting way. and he's able to introduce them seamlessly and then wrap up their little character arc in, 5, 6, 7 chapters, and then they're gone, like, entirely. But just the way that those little side characters build upon the mystery, and we find more about Johan and Tenma and all this other little details. I think it's really, really clever, but for some reason in my memory it just kind of it's lost its potency, and that's obviously a result of the time between now and me having read it. But I don't know, it just maybe it's one of those, and I think this is true of a lot of mysteries, it only really grabs you so long as you're in the mystery working it out, but once it's solved you can kind of relive the excitement of solving the mystery, but it doesn't have that same kind of, I don't know, that allure, I suppose you should say.
Yeah. And I feel the same, especially because, again, Monster is another manga that I've read like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I do remember better is the ending, which I still think it's one of the most solid endings Urasawa's done, because he's good at finishing manga, and that's especially true with 20th Century Boys. Monster has a really solid ending.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I have one more Urasawa work on here that I'm itching to just get up there, and that's Pluto. And I think what caused me to reevaluate Monster in my mind was me reading Pluto, because for me, Pluto is in every way, not in every way, but I think Pluto is overall the better experience over Monster. What I like about it is I feel more intimately connected to the characters. Like, I feel like there were more moving moments in Pluto. And it almost condenses all the excitement of Monster into a smaller package. I love the way it wraps up, but it's very Urasawa. Again, it brings in these little side characters to, unfold a bit of the mystery and then brings them out. Like, it feels very much like an Urasawa work, but I don't know, I just feel like the characters are just a little more lively in this over, say, Monster.
Yeah, I understand that. I do prefer Monster, just because I think Pluto, like you said, it's Urasawa condensed, and I think that's great, especially if you wanna start with Urasawa. I'd recommend starting with Pluto in Monster. Just because I think it's better to experience it first. But I do think the mystery of Monster and just mainly the mystery and the way it's solved and the way everything kind of really connects together is better.
Yeah.
But and the thing that you said about the characters, I agree. But again, I think 20th Century Boys does it better.
Okay.
To me, Pluto kind of drops it a little bit. I think it's one of the few Urasawa manga that I have the 9 out of 10, which is not a bad score at all.
Absolutely not. Yeah. No, I'm willing to agree. Yeah, that Monster, I think, has a more carefully crafted mystery, and I think it unfolds in a much more thought out way than Pluto. And again, that's probably because it's a little more condensed package. Sometimes the introduction of characters and bringing them out isn't as seamless as, say, with Monster. But yeah, I think the big difference is I think the characters overall in Pluto are done better than in Monster, but the mystery's done better. But on what you're saying, 20th Century Boys has that same kind of like just better characters kind of angle. So I still want to give Pluto the S, but I'll put it under Monster, even though I'd probably put it over Monster. I'd probably even put an S+, but I think this is pretty good. I think it's pretty good even ground for both of us.
I mean, it is your list at the end of the day.
Our list. I'm very much I want to give you a fair shake for sure and hear what you have to say to make a somewhat collaborative list that we can kind of agree on, plus or minus, a few things maybe. All right, so that's Urasawa. We won't be talking about him for the rest of the day. Now, have you read MW by Tezuka?
No, not yet. Okay. I want to. There's a lot of manga from Tezuka that I want to read.
Yeah,
I haven't.
I was just gonna bring it there because this is the manga that really inspired Monster, and I was hoping to have read it before this video, but I'm still only like a third of the way through it. And honestly, I'm in a position now where I am liking it more than Monster, and a large part of that, and you're gonna see a trend here. What I care about more is characters and their interactions more than I guess the building and unfolding of a mystery, which is why I like Pluto so much, and why I think I like 20th Century Boys even more. I think MW is just, it absolutely nails the characters here. We have the kind of the Johan-esque, Yuki is his name. I don't know how much I could say without getting too much into spoiler territory, so I'll try and keep it rather sparse. But he's pretty much like the sociopath kind of character, the psychopath kind of character, who has this foil, which is a priest whose name I've totally forgotten. And so their dynamic is very much like Tenma's and Johan, because the priest in MW is constantly trying to save Yuki, because he feels some kind of responsibility for something that happened in the past. So just in that kind of framing, you can already see the kind of parallels between that and Monster. Otherwise, it's just a classic. No, go on.
I was going to say that I'm really interested in it now, so.
It's tremendously well written. Again, I think Tezuka just kills it with the characters. It's remarkable to me. And, you know, it has that signature Tezuka artwork, which admittedly took me a little bit to get used to, but I'll talk a little bit more about that when we discuss his next work that I know you also just read. But for the time being, I'm going to put this in A, only because, you know, how can I compare 1/3 of a manga to, you know, 16 volumes of Monster or whatever? Because I mean, it could just be shit for the last 2/3, and I gotta be open to that. I don't think it will be. I think it'll only get better, but this is an amazing manga. Yeah, absolutely recommend it, especially if you like Monster and Tezuka. This is like the manga to go to next.
Right. It's kind of short as well, right?
Yeah,
it's like 6 volumes or something.
I'm not sure. It's definitely like been published in various ways. Like I have an all-in-one version of it right there, but it's 27 chapters.
Okay.
So do with that info as you will. But on the topic of Tezuka, there is another work on here of his that we've both read recently, and that is the Book of Human Insects.
Yeah. It was, I think it's my current favorite Tezuka manga, which I haven't read many, by the way. But it is very interesting. Especially the first chapter. I think the first chapter is the best out of 4, because it is a really short manga. Yeah,
I can see where you're coming from. This was my first Tezuka manga, like, period, and I had no idea what to expect because I never read Tezuka before. I didn't really know what to expect. I was honestly expecting like some Disney level content, because that's what you expect with the art, and you're so used to like the parallels between you know, Tezuka's earlier work and how it influenced Disney and vice versa or whatever. And so I was expecting that, and when I read the Book of Human Insects, and we get to the scene where that female protagonist's friend or roommate, whatever, hangs herself, I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? This isn't Disney at all. So that largely influences why I think so highly of this, because I was just so shocked at, like, I had no idea what to expect. And then just seeing the different creative ways she like manipulates everyone around her and always finds a way to do it and succeeds off the backs of others. And it's just so, I don't know, it's just beautiful, perfect. Well, not perfect, but I really love it.
It's really, really good. I had read some works of Tezuka, some seinen works of Tezuka before, so it wasn't as surprising to me. I think Ayako is also an interesting thing you should read eventually.
Yes.
You have it there.
I do, and I was going to read that one next, but I opted for MW because it was a little shorter.
But yeah, I do like Ayako, but I think the Book of You is better.
Ooh.
It reminds me a lot of Kasane, which is the manga I asked you to put on this list. Which I do think Kasane is probably very influenced in this. But yeah, I really like how the main character manipulates everyone around her. That's probably the most interesting part of the manga, and that's why I kind of like the first chapter better, because you don't really understand her nature in that chapter, and she's like very mysterious.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I like it. I think I'd put it at a an A or a B, personally.
Yeah. I'm honestly kind of leaning towards the A side, and Yeah, we're really populating that top part of the list right away. But
I mean, we're talking about Asano, Tezuka, and Urasawa, so
yeah, it's, these are obviously high scores. I'm gonna give it over MW simply because I haven't finished MW yet, but it could go either way. This is like a marginal difference. So this is what we're rocking with so far. I'm pretty happy with what we've got here so far.
like it. We need to give some generic works though.
Yeah.
Put on C.
Okay. Generic work number 1 for me is gonna be Kingdom of the Gods. Have you read this one?
No, I thought it was just Kingdom at first, but then the cover looked weird to me.
Yep, you know what? Interestingly, I also bought it because I thought it was Kingdom. And I'm like, oh my god, Kingdom over here? That's awesome. I can't wait to read this. And then I open it up and it's like this kind of mediocre, gory, kind of like I've read this within the last 3 months and almost all the details are lost upon me. This one is going to be... Well, I don't even remember what score I gave it, but... I'll fail this one. But in the same volume, it came with another one called Burning Hell, and that one was slightly better. I thought there were some cool ideas in there.
Nice.
I can't discuss what those are because I don't remember them. So I'll give it under 13 club. We'll leave it
Did
there.
you read this like 2 months ago?
Yeah, like I did a manga log on it and everything where I discussed it a bit, and like already it's just like, whew, what manga? Yeah.
That does happen to me sometimes, especially when I like binge stuff.
Yeah. Like I think
I remember
since Burning Hell, I probably binged all of Bleach, which would take up a lot of room in my mind.
Yeah. I remember binging. There's 2 works I remember binging, which is Flowers of Evil and Gantz, that I rated super highly. I gave Gantz a 10 out of 10 when I first finished reading it. I don't remember anything about Gantz, and I don't remember anything about Flowers of Evil, even though I gave it a 9 out of 10 as well. So I had to take the 10 out of Gantz temporarily, at least, until I go back to it.
Dude, honestly, that happens to me a lot. It's actually insane. Especially like my 9s. I feel like the 10s I'm a little more restrictive over, but the 9s, it's like, I'll give you a 9 and I'll move on and then I'll forget why I gave you a 9, and it's like, oh man. But speaking of, I don't know, we spoke of someone. Let's do Kasane next, speaking of Ayako and how that's seemingly quite influenced by this. This is one that you're quite fond of that I have not read. So how do you feel about Kasane?
I give it an S. Maybe not. I don't think it's S plus, especially having him that are in S tier. I think it's influenced in the Book of Human Insects because it is also about kind of like this manipulative artist. This is all about theater. And the main character is this girl who's really, really good at acting. But she's also really, really ugly. Like, really ugly. So, basically nobody wants to give her works. She just... Whenever she goes outside, people just look at her like, what the fuck is this monster? And then she discovers that she has like this lipstick where she made faces with other people, and so she actually trades faces with a beautiful girl that was also an actress but didn't have any talent at all, and takes her role. And then it goes from there. So basically, she can only have the face for a limited amount of time. She has to continue like kissing the other girl, but from there it really goes about like this story about beauty and how being ugly is bad, but being really beautiful can also be bad. It's not just one note. And the main character is so interesting because she is really empathetic. Like, you can understand why she's doing the things that she's doing, especially the way she's treated in the world. But she goes so far in some situations where she really becomes the villain. And to me, like, another manga that has a villain as a main character is like Death Note, where you have Light, where he's like kind of a big ambiguous character, kind of good, kind of bad. But Kasane to me is so much more interesting because you can understand every reason why she does that, and you can wonder if you were in their position, if you would do the same or not, and maybe you would. Where if I don't know, if I was Light, I probably would not kill tons of people. So that for me makes it so much interesting. The
Yeah.
problem I think is the ending. The ending kind of fumbles a bit.
Ah. Yeah, I quite like the sounds of that. Like, I'm always interested in manga and, again, just the creative ways the mangaka can have characters manipulate one another. That's interestingly also why I was a big fan of Flowers of Evil. Just all the ways that Nakamura would initially manipulate that main guy whose name is lost upon me right now. But, yeah. But I also like how you pointed at that. You can very much see her reasoning for doing all of that, which I like. And I feel like that's almost noticeably absent from the Book of Insects, for instance.
Yeah.
I think it more so is just a reflection of like that character's, like her character itself. Like she's just this kind of shallow, empty. Like that's how they describe her frequently throughout the manga. Like that's just who she is. Like she's just this shallow, like almost sociopathic manipulator. So there is no really reason. It's just for like self gain, which is, I guess, a reason. Less interesting, but a reason. This here seems much more methodical and thought out in its kind of manipulation, which I love.
Yeah. For me, it's definitely S tier.
Where would you put it? Would you put it above Monster, above 20th Century Boys?
I personally put it between Monster and Pluto.
All right, let's do it.
But
I think I'd love it actually, and this is something that I kind of am interested into reading now. So, where next? Maybe we can just knock off another 5 centimeters per second. Is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I loved this one when I was a teen. The movie, at least. Back then, I don't know, it just hit with me. It was one of my favorite movies. I think if I watch it now, I wouldn't like it as much. And I've read the manga Semi recently, and I remember it didn't resonate with me much.
Yeah, likewise. I came into it much like you through the movie eventually, which is, this is like divided into like 3 kind of stories, right? If I'm thinking of the correct one. I liked the first one. The others, when I read the manga, I also was just kind of left with this overwhelming sense of disappointment. Because, I don't know, again, this is one of those like generally like well-regarded kind of romance thingies, but I don't know, it didn't do much for me.
Yeah, I think personally the reason why I liked the movie I did was because I really liked the theme of people kind of moving away from each other. I think there's not works of romance that tackle that the distance can, break people. I think that worked a little bit better a couple years ago. I remember when I was a kid, and it's probably why I really like this manga or the movie back then, was when I was a kid, I had like this really best friend of mine. We were really close, and then he moved away, and then we just kind of like, we met a couple of times and then never met again. We were in the same college like 10 years later, and we never met there.
Oh, damn.
Because it was just like the distance that broke that friendship. But now that I've had a long distance relationship with my girlfriend, that now we're living together, distance isn't really something that can, it can break a friendship and a romance, only if you let it.
Yeah. Yep. So, where are we feeling about this one?
I'd give it a C, personally.
Okay. I'll throw it in C for now. But I'm glad you brought up those themes, because I think that there's a manga that tackles the same thing, well, manga/movie, but just does it better, and that for me is Voices of a Distant Star. I thought...
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it did the same kind of, lovers being separated by distance, but what I like about this is it takes the sci-fi angle, and it's no longer just like, from here to another country. It's like light years away. Literally, like there's points in manga where like she'll send a text and she has to wait like a decade to get a reply, because that's how long it takes for the transmission to travel to his phone and then to travel back. And they are still optimistic about their relationship, despite, again, well, that's actually not entirely true, because they end up having their own lives almost. If I remember correctly, she ends up moving on Earth and has her own kind of family, while he doesn't age out there in space. And then they come back, and I don't really remember the ending anymore, to be completely honest with you. I do remember, I think the anime and manga were quite different in their endings, though, which is interesting to note. But have you read the manga or watched the movie at all?
I've read the manga.
Mm-hmm.
I never watched the movie. I think the movie is by the same guy that did the 50 cents per second.
Oh, okay.
I think it is. Not sure, so if I'm wrong, leave it in comments or something.
I don't think anyone cares enough to look it up.
Maybe someone knows.
Oh, maybe though.
But yeah, I remember liking this a bit more as well, but just because the team was a bit more interesting. Again, the fact that they had to wait like literal years and sometimes decades to wait for the reply, it was a bit more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd still put it on C, but I'd put it above, or maybe on B. I don't know. I'll leave that one to you.
I think I'm going to keep it in C for now, but again, definitely above 5 centimeters per second. I think the difference between the two is significant, but not so much that I'd drop this down here. Well, let's just start knocking through them alphabetically, unless there's one that really jumps out at you that you're feeling like you want to speak to.
Now we can start alphabetically, I think.
A Girl by the Shore. One of the most controversial manga, like probably, I don't want to say ever, but like definitely amongst at least our more, local kind of anime manga community, especially like with the East Coast crowd. This was like a big meme amongst them, Girl on the Shore, because obviously the subject that it deals with is quite, perhaps not the best suited for everyone. Well, what's your first impressions and thoughts on this series?
I don't remember much of it. I remember reading it. I remember liking it, but it's been so long that the things that I kind of remember is more so that from people talking about it.
Yeah.
And from a friend of mine overreacting over it on Discord, because I think I recommended it to her because I had it sent. And she was like, "This is kids having sex." And I'm like, is it? I don't actually remember.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're both in middle school, and yeah, that's what people chalk it up as, just kids having sex, the manga, which is, yeah. I mean, taken in that, like, obviously, it's easy to just clown on it, but, and it's hard for me to come to the defense of it right now, because I'm not equipped with the knowledge to defend it properly, because I also haven't read it in a few years. But I will say that my general impressions of it was not simply that it's Asano being horny about underage people. I feel like that's such a bad faith kind of interpretation of the manga. I felt like he was trying to get at something.
I don't remember either. I think it was a bit about the sexuality of young people. I remember being in middle school and having like classmates who had sex every week.
Yeah, exactly right. I think you bring out a good point there, and this is also why I love Oshimi so much, because like, yes, there's a sense in which depicting underage people having sex is inappropriate, but I also don't think that we should have these like hard limits on what you can depict through art. I think we should be able to scrutinize whatever they depict if it's for bad purposes, but I don't think that Asano has bad intentions here, and I don't think that a faithful reader of the manga would come out with that interpretation. It is very much just depicting something that happens in reality. You know what I mean? And I think you said it best there.
Yeah, I agree.
So what would you rate? I'm definitely thinking the echelons of a low A, high B kind of.
That is kind of what I'm thinking as well. Again, just because I don't remember, it's kind of hard to give a proper rating. Mm-hmm. From my analyst score, I'd probably give it an A.
Yeah, I think I'd
that is
because again,
it's just my best to me.
It's Asano's art. You can never go wrong with that. And Yeah, it's not that bad. I'm not going to be so easy to recommend it, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, but that's kind of the thing of some manga, where it's not easy to recommend to everyone, but not necessarily because they're bad, just because a lot of topics are not that easy to swallow, and a lot of people probably are not comfortable with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of like I like Arigatou. It's also on this list.
Absolutely. And what a ride Arigatou was, since we're here, you know what I mean?
Yes, I think especially the first 3 chapters. I think people who read The Girl on the Shore and thought it was offensive, if they're gonna read Arigatou, it's gonna be worse.
Yes, because those first 3 chapters in particular, that just no holds barred. Like, every possible thing you would give a trigger warning for is present in those chapters. And if that's all you read, like, it can just seem like the most edgy and provocative piece, period, with no kind of real message or intention behind it other than to just shock people. But then you read onwards, right?
Yeah.
And then it's truly phenomenal. Like, what always stuck out to me was like the depths the father was willing to go to maintain his family image. Like, he wouldn't go to the police because, you know, once a report got out there, people would find out what's happening to his daughter, and they would think less of his family. And just the awful ways that kind of mentality manifests in the father's life. It is so wonderfully portrayed in this manga. It really does bring light on the issues with only worrying about your public image, and I think that stops the family from getting the help that they need. And it goes about that in the most on the nose, blunt fashion way, and I love it for that. Actually, I gave it like a mid-high 9. Like, I really enjoyed this manga.
Yeah, I give it a 9 as well. I always remember better the first 3 chapters just because they're so heavy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I think the family dynamic from there onward is really, it's really interesting. I think.
Yeah.
People should read it if they can handle it.
Yeah, like, this is definitely one of those pieces, you know, much like Girl on the Shore. It is incredibly difficult to get past the actual content that it discusses, but if you can, it is genuinely an amazing manga. For that reason, I would vote, you know, high A. Not quite an S, but I'm feeling a high A on this one.
Yeah, it's same.
Yeah.
For me.
Absolutely. Okay. Next is Akira, which I've only seen the film, so I can't really speak on the manga. So I'll hand that one off to you.
Yeah. So I feel like the movie is gorgeous. I really like the animation and everything. I feel like the movie is a bit confusing.
Yep, I
a
agree.
lot of times, and that's partially because it only adapts a bit of the manga, but it's not like only the beginning. It's like the beginning and then a middle part and then the ending. So you don't get everything in the story. So I definitely recommend reading the manga. And one of the reasons why I really like Akira is because before Akira, pretty much every manga from its time that I read, which was mostly shonens, I just didn't really like them. And I had this feeling like, for example, people that defend Sensei and JoJo, which is the main two that I read, they kind of defended like, oh, it's an old manga, so why it's like that. The same thing with Devilman. I'm not sure if you read the manga of Devilman.
No, I've only ever seen the Crybaby anime adaptation.
Yeah. So the manga of Devilman, it's fun. I like it, but it's really outdated. In terms of like the art style and the dialogues and things like that, they are not as good as one would expect nowadays.
Yeah.
And I always kind of like said it was because of the time, at least. But then you read something like Akira, and it's nothing like those works. Like, the art style is amazing. The dialogue, the characters, the story, everything is still solid. It does not feel like it was published in 1980. So,
Jeez.
just because of that, I kind of want to give it I want to give it a high rating. I feel like it's still a bit confusing as well. A lot of the times, I'd put it on A. I wouldn't put it on S, honestly.
All right.
Just because, again, it is still confusing. I don't think it's kind of like a manga that I really, really love. But it is definitely like, especially in terms of that time, it's probably the best thing that they had. So I'd put it on A.
Would you put it?
Not sure.
I guess this is the big question: is it better or worse than A Girl on the Shore?
I'm gonna say better.
Okay.
I'd put it there.
Safe call.
Safe
call for sure. Oh geez, we could have had this video destroyed with dislikes had we put it below A Girl on the Shore.
I mean, we can still get a lot of dislikes, but
I think our B tier could absolutely destroy us because we just have to remember A Girl on the Shore isn't on that, still in that A tier, even if it's at that bottom part. So,
yeah.
Let's just do Avant-Garde Yumiko. I believe you read this one fairly recently as well, right? This kind of a Asano one-volume work. Or not Asano, Oshimi.
Asano.
Damn.
Yeah, I read it yesterday with Sweet Poolside.
Oh, nice.
Because I thought both of them were on this list. Then Sweet Poolside is a shonen, right? So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I didn't even realize. I went on AniList and I just filtered through everything that I've read and I just clicked Seinen and that's how I did it. And I was surprised, like we'd mentioned, that Happiness by Oshimi is a shonen. Never would have thought.
Yeah.
And Sweet Poolside too. Like even Flowers of Evil, it's not obvious to me that is aimed at a young. I mean, it's
not at all,
because it speaks to themes of adolescence so well. But a lot of seinen kind of do. But because of how much it depicts, it is kind of just classified as a seinen. I feel like, I guess there's nothing so explicit in Flowers of Evil, so. But that's very much a good manga aimed towards that demographic. But that's not what we're talking about. Avant-Garde Yumiko.
was interesting.
I am genuinely like a pretty big fan of this work, and my reason for that is because to me it really sums up Oshimi's entire project in a single manga, because sexuality is so front and center in this manga. It's this girl who's quite literally obsessed with penises. Like that's the manga. She likes penises a whole lot, and she's doing anything she can do to like see one because she's scared she's never gonna see one. And this leads her into an art class, and she ends up staying on the so far as the other member of the club will let her draw him naked, and then she just goes to town. Like she only goes to the club to draw penises like all day. That's literally it. But what's so great about this manga is at the end the guy is obviously kind of interested in her. He is, he's like, you always wanted to see me naked. She probably wants to have sex, and he's horned out of his mind. And just approaches her, and she freaks the fuck out. And it's in that moment that like the whole meaning of the manga changes, because she's not driven by like this weird, sexual drive to, to see penises. There's something much bigger going on than just sex, penis, and all that stuff. How many more times will I say penis? Who knows? Dicks, cock, balls.
I think the manga says cocks a lot.
Yeah, it's great, but that little twist right there, that's when you realize that, and that's really Oshimi's whole thing. Like sex is riddled throughout almost everything he does. It's so front and center, but it's never just being horny. It's never just porn or hentai. It's, to me, in Avant-Garde Yumiko, the whole idea of Yumiko's obsession with penises, it's just something other to her that she's, I don't know, there's so much talk around it that she has it almost up on a pedestal, and so she's scared she's not going to get a chance to get at it, and so she, takes all these different means to finally get to it. And, it's never just about having sex in here, and I don't know. It's obviously, it's short, there's not a whole lot going on. I think the whole punch of the manga is in that little twist there, but I think it just so succinctly summarizes everything Oshimi does. That's why I like it so much, but I don't think you're so keen on it, so do tell. I mean, you recently read it as well.
Yeah, all in all, I like the manga. I feel like both it and Sweet Poolside are similar in a way. I did like this one better, though.
Yeah, Sweet Poolside was... It didn't have any big punch or twist at the end. It was just weird from like chapter 1 to chapter 9 or 11, whatever it was. Can you just shave my legs, bro? Because I keep cutting myself. The manga. Like, that's literally it. There's not a whole lot going on. I really want to give this... what do I want to give this? A high C.
Yeah, I'm fine with IC. That kind of goes along with the score that I gave it, I think. I really like the dynamic between the two characters for most of the manga as well.
Yep.
So.
I definitely... Like, I think I speak to it with a lot of praise because of just how succinct I think it gets to the point in a way. But, like, at the end of the day, there's... And it is an interesting read, but it's, it's no... it's no Girl on the Shore.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of reminds me a bit of what Flowers of Evil is going to be later on.
Yeah.
That kind of relationship between the girl and the guy.
Could not agree more. I guess while we're on the topic of Oshimi, what else do we have on here by him? We have the infamous Blood on the Tracks. Have you been reading that at all, or...?
No, I just want to say that there's 0 other Oshimi manga that I read in this list.
Okay. I'll do a quick recap. Blood on the Tracks, I think it could shape up to be better than Flowers of Evil for me, which is quite a claim because I think Flowers of Evil is like my top 10 manga. The big issue with Blood on the Tracks right now is that like it's just taking forever to end. It should have ended like 20, 30 chapters ago. It just keeps dragging and dragging and dragging. Now, I think that there's a lot of opportunities for it to blow me away in this kind of final saga, especially exploring the kind of the psychology of the mom and the son in an actual professional setting now. Oh geez, that's probably kind of spoilerish. I don't know. It's quite vague though. I think depending on where it goes, it could be amazing, and where it is right now, we're finally going to get the reunion of the mother and the son after so long, and I'm excited to see how that's going to turn out. The real appeal in this is just that, unlike other Oshimi works, which I feel are much more situated in a kind of a more realistic setting, this is a much more like driven by its psychological thrilling aspects, I guess you could say, because this mother and this son are so intimately connected. This mother absolutely obsessed with their son. It's the most overprotective mother imaginable. She almost never lets him go out with other friends. She is always making sure she knows where he is. She only wants like his cousin to come over and play with him. She has him like on a leash, and that's just his life. And so for one of the interesting aspects is just seeing him trying to interact normally with other kids in school because he's so manipulated by his mom and just doesn't know anything different. So seeing the kind of distance between him and the other classmates, just in terms of social behavior, for instance, quite interesting. But the meat of it is just the relationship between the mom and the son at home, and just because the mom's fucking crazy, trying to figure out her motives and seeing him try to cope with that and trying to figure them out himself, and it gives it all through his perspective. It's really, really interesting. But again, what's bringing it down is that kind of long-winded ending right now. I think it could kind of save it at the very end, but for a lot of people, these kind of final, like 20ish chapters just won't stop dragging. All that said, I'm still feeling a high A on this one, and I said it could be better than Girl in the it could be better
Flowers
than
of Evil?
Yes, Flowers of Evil. But right now, I have to just wait for it to end. And so with that, I'm just going to put it above Akira. I don't know. We have some inconsistencies with the scores, like on my any list versus what I'm saying versus what's on this tier list. Fuck it all. All that matters right now is this tier list, and I'm feeling good with Blood on the Tracks there. Above Akira, under Tezuka.
I feel like tier lists will always be a bit different from your scores.
Yeah, especially because like a tier list is just going to be more updated, and it's going to draw upon not you actually watching the show or looking at clips from a show or a manga, but what you remember from it, which is very different.
Yeah. We still have 0 things on B.
Yeah, quite insane. And it's not obvious to me that there are any Bs still down here. We might have to change some things up a little later, but we'll worry about that later. So what else is by Oshimi real quick that I can just kind of fart out?
Inside Mary?
What is it?
Inside Mary.
Oh, that's true. Where's that at? Eyes.
You were with the mouse right there.
There. I dropped it like after 20 chapters because I just didn't think I was going to get back to it. It's solid. You know, it's just a kind of body swap thing. Creepy guy, no life, kind of dropped out of university or college or whatever. Always goes to this little convenience store where he sees this very pretty girl, and he likes to go there at a certain time because he knows she's always going to be there. One night he follows her out. She looks around with a menacing smile, and then boom, he wakes up in her body. And then it's the story of him trying to get his body back. And, you know, I always said it was the more realistic Your Name because he is, I don't know, more representative of what a guy in a girl's body would do, I guess, at first. But because he's a more timid guy, it is just a little more different than you might initially imagine. And then the fun of the manga is that somebody realizes that Mari isn't actually Mari, but it's this guy. And so she works together with him to try and maintain Mari's image and get Mari back. So it, you know, a lot of cool stuff there. And I think I'd actually think quite highly of it if I were to finish it, but I just don't care to. So I'm actually going to put this in B. I think that's a nice B.
Sounds good.
Yeah, fill it up at least. Is that it for Mr. Oshimi? Oh no, there's Utai Nova. Is this Utai Nova or or is this Devil Ecstasy? I don't remember. Is Devil Ecstasy not here? Is that not a seinen? Oh, there it is. Oh god, I'm gonna do this one first. Long story short, institute called Devil Ecstasy, which is pretty much a brothel / whorehouse, arises, and people go in there. They have the time of their lives, and then they die. But our protagonist is absolutely terrified of big boobs. And
I want to read that.
Yeah, right, like, dude, the first page, it's Devil Ecstasy, 40 chapters, and it's one hell of a ride. The first panel is a shot of this girl, like, touch my boobs or something like that, and the guy's just petrified. But it turns out that that's what saves his life, because he goes to Devil Ecstasy with his friend, and because he's too scared of all the big-breasted women, he doesn't do anything, and so he survives, but his friend doesn't, and so, you know, we gotta figure out what's happening at Devil Ecstasy, and blah blah blah. I actually quite enjoyed this. It's just a good, fun read to kick back and enjoy too. I'm gonna give it B as well.
Sounds very fun, so...
Yeah, it's an earlier kind of a Oshimi work, so the art's a little less refined than some of his later stuff, but it's still like solid all around. And then there's
I was kind of surprised with Sweet Poolside and forgot the Dick's girl.
Yeah, avant-garde Yumiko, Dick's girl.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised with Yourself because I only read his later stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize his art was so, I don't want to say bad because it wasn't really that bad, but it's improved a lot.
Yep, it is. It has a more amateur quality to it, and I do believe Devil Ecstasy came out even earlier than Avant-Garde Yumiko, so you're going to be in for quite the shock. It doesn't even look like Oshimi. It reads like Oshimi. The manga is very much an Oshimi work, but it's, yeah, very much not in the style of what we know as the kind of Flowers of Evil, Happiness, Blood on the Tracks kind of Oshimi. And then to knock out the final Oshimi work quite quickly, Utai Nova. Too long, didn't read. Protagonist has this ability to like blast out of his body and like zoop around the city and, you know, look at things. He can't interact with them because he's almost like a ghost. And he uses this to pretty much stalk his ex-girlfriend who he regrets having ended things with. And he is quite distraught to find out that she has very much moved on. And so, anyways, he tries to like save her when she is in danger in certain situations, but because he's only a ghost, he can't do much. And he's afraid to do things in his human body because that would kind of reveal that he's been stalking her, which is obviously not great. Again, I don't know. I don't have any complaints with the manga. I find Oshimi's works generally are just easy to read, very fun. Again, I think it to use your language, I really like this, fumbles the ending a little bit. I was not so satisfied with it, but I'm going to keep it in that B category, man. I feel like Oshimi is, at his worst, he's a B, you know what I mean? Well, maybe besides this, but that's just because this is short and just kind of lacks the punch. I think that needs to be a B. So I think that about covers Oshimi, so glad to have him out of the way.
Wait, the one before Solanin isn't from him?
Oh my god, you're right again! Damn!
It does look...
For someone who hasn't read all these Oshimi titles, you can sure spot him a mile away.
It just looks like his work.
Yeah. Shino can't say her name. She can't say her name, man. That's the manga. Anyways, moving on. No, it's okay. I might actually put this at a lower C. It was just kind of boring. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not gonna waste your time with it. No, I'm not even gonna say anything. I've done an Oshimi tier list as well. If you want to hear me actually talk about it, actually, I'm pretty sure in that video I brushed it off too. So simply don't read it, I guess.
Yeah, but go watch the Oshimi tier list if you haven't yet.
Yes, it's a must for Oshimi fans and non-Oshimi fans. For everyone, watch the video. Give me more watch time. I want to be monetized.
You still need, like, the same as me, like 300 something subscribers.
Yeah.
Are you
at 660 subscribers as well, or?
I'm 670.
Ooh, nice. I'm 661, I believe. So, I'm catching up.
You are. I mean, there was a time where we were growing it exactly. I mean, it's been this way for a while. We've been growing exactly the same speed, more or less.
We've been very neck and neck for a long time, like just same amount of growth, and yeah, that's another reason there's so many parallels between us. All right, we're getting through the list now. Are these 11 across? I think 3, 6, 9. No, they're not. 12, 13 times 3 is 39 plus 1 is 40. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, damn. Speed maths over here. So we're like 1/3 through the list. All right. Happy to announce.
We need to speed things up a little bit.
We do. So why don't you bring us home with Berserk, a very infamous title.
Yeah, I haven't been reading Berserk, or rather, I've been reading Berserk because I got the heavy liftage. So I've recently back to it, and I finished the first arc.
Is that the golden egg stuff?
No, it's before. It's the bad arc of Berserk.
Okay, yes.
Because, and I've read a little bit of the golden arc as well. But I stopped reading Berserk, like 2014, I think, or 2015. I stopped reading manga in general at that time, and I never went back to Berserk.
Okay.
I think they were at the boat back then, but pretty much everything that I did read was fantastic. There's a reason why a lot of people give it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm
even this first arc is really good. So
yeah, I mean, I've only read a single volume of it, and I don't know. This was also interestingly like around like 2014ish, and I don't know. I just couldn't get into the setting. I know that seems to be like a rather shallow critique, and you should probably give it, especially something so highly regarded, give it more than a volume. But I just wasn't motivated to. I know it's a rather artificial way of determining what to continue reading or not. I didn't like the medieval setting, so I dropped it. But I mean, bro, with tens and tens and tens of thousands of manga out there, you need some way to determine what you're going to read, even if it is the stupidest reason. And you know what? Maybe I read Berserk and it's the best thing in the universe, but I'm not.
No, I definitely get that. Like a lot of people, there's like that mentality that you need to read like 100 chapters of something to drop it.
Yeah.
There's no need for that.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so this is going to be an important part of the video. Where are we going to place Berserk?
Left here?
Yeah. Okay, moving on. I mean, honestly, I think I gave that first volume like a 5 point something. I frankly did not enjoy it. But obviously, I am willing to, put it up just a little bit more because it's so highly regarded, and I'm willing to hear what you have to say on it. So,
Yeah,
what do you feel?
you know what? You know what? I feel like it's one of the biggest problems with Berserk. That's overall, it's not really a big problem, but the first page of Berserk is probably the worst page of Berserk because it completely betrays everything that the manga is about, and it's just there mostly for shock value. I know that when you have like the whole story, there's some plot reasons for that to happen, but it's mostly for shock value. Once you get past that, I think the first arc is not the best. I still think it's good, but I think it's really when you get into that Guts and Griffith dynamic that things really get to. Because to me, and I know you're a big Naruto fan, so but to me, Griffith and Guts kind of feel like what I wish Naruto and Sasuke were. Not to the same level. I didn't want Sasuke to do what Griffith does because it's the shonen. It's not the same kind of manga. It's obviously not as heavy. But I think that dynamic, I do think Guts and Griffith do it better.
I think I would absolutely love Griffith if I, had gave it the run and to get to where, we get the meat of his kind of character arc, or at least where it starts really in Golden Egg, I assume.
Yeah, but you really need to get like 4 volumes and before you even really appears. But yeah, I mean, even the arcs past the Golden Age, which is kind of like what people mostly talk about with Berserk, I feel like they are very interesting. They are very violent. I personally love that. But I think the character of Guts is one of the most interesting main characters. And you kind of get a little bit of that in the first volume, but I don't think it really represents who Guts really is. And it's kind of a bait and switch from Yura's part, but I think it's a bait and switch that really makes the first part a little bit worse. I mean, I'd give it an S tier still, but I don't know.
I think I'll give it that low S, man. I got to do it. I'm just, I am always willing to say that, if you've only read one volume, you are justified to criticize the one volume, but obviously that criticism does not extend to the whole of the series. And so, given that, I think your criticism, or your judgment holds more weight simply because you've read more. And again, I just feel like I am willing to bump it up more, given its status as pretty much the manga.
Yeah, I think
but
it is still the number 1 in mall. It has been the number 1 mall ratings. So I remember using mall, which I'm old, so it's a lot of time.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Berserk. Alright guys, don't chew us apart. We didn't give it lower than A Girl on the Shore, which in my humble opinion I would have, but that's fine. Hey, that's
why I'm here.
Manga Crash is here to save me from losing 100 subscribers.
Yeah.
Alright. We continue onwards with Blue Spring. Interestingly, the only work by Taiyo Matsumoto I've ever consumed.
And I haven't read that one.
And he's a pretty big name. What have you said? Sorry, I totally blanked out for the 2 seconds you talked.
I just said I didn't read that one.
Okay.
I've only started reading Taiyo Matsumoto this year or last year. I think our first work was last year, but I've read very little.
Okay. Blue Spring is just a collection of short stories. I'm quite a big fan of the artwork. I haven't read this though since 2013, 2014. I don't remember loving it, but I remember liking it more than Shino Can't Say Her Name. So there it sits. This volume, by the way, is incredibly difficult to get in English now. It's super out of print. I didn't realize that. so it's nice to have it.
Do you have it though?
Oh, absolutely. I was inspired to pick it up by Code Provider, actually. This was one of the manga he talked quite a bit about, so I got this along with No Longer Human, and I think there might have been one more that I got on his recommendation. I don't remember what it is, though. I think it was Solanin, actually. Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, so... Alright. One that I've read for you now. Children. Or should I say, Promise Neverland, but good.
Yeah. When you said that on Twitter, I was like, actually, that is kind of true.
I was really taken aback at how much I enjoyed this. You know, just
it's really good.
Because obviously there's the initial shock value of kids murdering adults, but once you actually kind of get into the manga and you see that, like, it's not that there are all these little evil monsters going around killing people because they're, you know, evil or whatever. It's because, like, that's literally just their way of life. That's just, they don't know any different, especially the younger ones. Now the older ones, you know, it's more difficult because they all have their reasons, but
yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed also the way it evolves in the middle act of the manga. Kind of sort of like discovering why they're doing this.
yeah.
I think the ending is a bit more meh.
Yeah.
But it's still good.
Now that plot twist
really
in chapter 10 blew me away. I didn't see it coming. I don't know. I didn't expect that. I'm not gonna, because that pretty much actually ruins a lot of the punch of this manga for me. I will say that the way they handle everything after that twist and how they try to explicate it and make sense of it all, it could have used, like, I don't know, maybe another volume of just explaining it all a little better and, you know, working it out together and giving us more background of certain characters. Though I think generally I did enjoy the ending, and I just wish we had more backstory to the main house, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the art was also beautiful. I thought it was quite interesting to look at visually, especially seeing kids hack apart, you know, grown adults. Quite an interesting sight for sure.
The art was the first thing that, like, the cover, caught my attention.
Yeah, it's stunning. I'd be willing. I kind of feel this around like a B. You know what I mean?
I'd put it at a B. Yeah.
Now, how does it sit amongst these Oshimi works?
I haven't read any, so I'll let you decide.
This is probably because of recency bias, but I'm going to put that at the top of the B's. It's so fresh in my mind, but man, I was, like, really impressed with it. Definitely check it out. It's only 2 volumes if you're looking for kind of like horror, thriller kind of thing.
Yeah.
Next we have Chojin X, new manga by Ishida, creator of Tokyo Ghoul. Is that his name?
I think it is. I never read Tokyo Ghoul.
Me neither.
It looks really interesting. One of my best friends is always, like, trying to convince me to read Tokyo Ghoul because it's one of, like, the 4 manga that you read.
It is definitely, like, Tokyo Ghoul is spoken with in such high regard, especially on TikTok, interestingly enough. They are all about Tokyo Ghoul on there. I bet it's good, because I've seen the first season of the anime, which for most people is like the good season. And I was very impressed actually by it. I think I like the idea. I think the execution was nice. The sounds and the visuals in the anime in particular for that first season were amazing. Everything afterwards is another story, but I'm slightly interested to get the box set and just see how the story in the manga pans out, because I heard it gets exponentially better. And I think there was enough there that I liked initially to continue going. But I'm just in a position right now where I'm not interested in those kind of longer works. Especially once you get Tokyo Ghoul and then Tokyo Ghoul Re, and then it's a lot to juggle. Yeah. But thankfully, Tokyo Ghoul's not here. Its good friend Chojin X's, however.
I never read this one though.
So. Oh, you haven't?
How are you enjoying it?
Oh, no. I'm surprised.
I avoid a lot of ongoings. I'm reading the Weekly Shonen Jump manga, all of it. So that's like 20 manga, and very little. I think the only other manga that I'm actually following is the Demon Kami Can't Communicate.
Oh, okay.
That is all. Oh, and start Dan like this week.
Yeah.
like 2 days ago. It's fantastic.
I'm looking forward to getting into that myself, actually, seeing as it's still like not that far along. I'm gonna be frank. I don't really enjoy Chojin X. I mean, it's hard to say. It's only, I think a chapter just came out, maybe chapter 7 or 8. I don't know, 6. It's. I don't have a whole lot to say on it. I don't know. I'm just gonna.
We've been here for like an hour or so.
I'll just chuck it there and see.
I think we can...
No, yeah, low C. Sorry, Chojin X fans. I know like Broken Ronin's a pretty big fan of this one, from what I can tell, and you know, he definitely has some pretty reputable opinions. But this one is just not doing it for me so far. I think it has potential. I like the ideas of the Chojin, and you know, Ichida's art is very gritty, and I love that kind of style. But I guess I just need more time to see the powers kind of fleshed out more and see, you know, the upper echelons of them, and I don't know. It's okay. I'm constantly contemplating dropping it, though, to be honest. I just don't enjoy reading it because like the chapter lengths are so irregular, and when it comes out, it's quite irregular as well. I don't know if it's since straightened up or not, but yeah, it's all right. City of Light. It's an Asano collection of short stories. It's like the yeah. What's that?
This was one of the few Asano manga that I never read.
Yeah, I didn't think you haven't read this one and that other short story collection, I believe, right?
Yeah. No, wait. I read one of them. I don't remember which. I don't remember anything about it. So it's almost as if I hadn't read it.
Yeah, for practical purposes. So let's just kind of fire through some of these little Asano ones real quick. City of Light was like, again, there's some cool like visual things that are happening. Like I think this one has the scene with like a bus being like rode from like all of its windows like that, and then it also kind of looks like a Cheshire. It's a pretty like visually interesting, and there are some cool stories in here about. Draws a blank. I don't know. There's like this messenger that sees people as they're gonna commit suicide or something. Is one of the. I really don't remember this one very much. Short story collections are a pain in the ass to remember anything of. This one was okay. But because I'm such an Asano simp, like it's got to be high C. The other one, however, I think it's Before the End of the World and the Beginning of Dawn or something. I've really just the worst title in existence for sure. It is the better short story collection by Asano because I think most of the short stories in here are, you know, about on par with any you would expect from Asano. But there are just these 3 in the middle, and it's kind of the main feature short stories. And they just cover like the same day from 3 different perspectives. First from like the daughter, I think, then the son, and then the father. And it's about this father who pretty much like just leaves out of nowhere one day. And what I really like is how in the perspectives of the son and daughter, it actually ties into some of the other short stories in the collection. And so that just kind of cohesiveness I really enjoy, especially when it presents itself as a short story collection, but it actually ends up being more unified than that. That was quite a nice detail. But then the actual story of those 3 perspectives on that same day were quite different. And I just like kind of trying to figure out, well, what was this person so insecure about to come to the conclusion that the father was leaving because of X, and then versus, you know, the daughter's interpretation. And then seeing the truth from the father's eyes and the kind of anxieties that were, you know, building up in his own life that led to him to leave that day. So this is my go-to recommendation for Asano short stories, but I would simply just not recommend short stories. Like, why would you read this when you could read like Solanin or Dead Dead Demons or Goodnight Punpun, right? Unless you love Asano, like I do and like you do. And so...
One of the things that I think Asano realized as well, like you mentioned that this short story really connects with the others. It does that a lot. Like What a Wonderful World, the Nijigahara Holographs, those are also like short stories that kind of are a story as well.
Yep. With speaking of What a Wonderful World, this is kind of like... Again, well, where do you feel about What a Wonderful World? I guess I'll ask you first. Where would you... Because you have read this, I assume.
Yeah, I've read it, and I recently, not recently, like 2 years ago, I bought it, and I could not. I think I read the first volume and I didn't touch the second. It just the first time I read it, it was one of the first Asano works that I read, so I thought it was pretty good. But now that I'm rereading it, I feel like there's a lot of things that it does better, especially like in Solanin. Why? To me, there's no reason to read What Wonderful World when you can read Solanin.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. This is a very polarizing piece to me because I feel like half of the short stories are like pretty good. I like the one with syrup. Just this guy walking around high off cough syrup. Just I don't know. I quite like the dialogue in that one. And then there's also the kind of titular story. The one with the maybe it's not titular, but the one with like the bear head robbery. Yeah, that one was also pretty good. But everything else was just
No, I agree. And we should note that this is Asano's first short story, so it's natural that it is not perfect.
Yeah, and it's even like, well, I think all three of these are before he really sunk his teeth into the more digital medium for art. And so this is just pretty much all him drawing by hand. And it's still good, and it's really interesting to see it contrasted with, say, Dead Dead Demons, but it just pales in comparison. Where would you put this in light of all what we just said?
I'd probably still give it a C. I'm not sure. I don't think it's D worthy, just because I'm a big Asano fan.
Likewise.
So,
I've always thought of it as the worst of the short stories, and so I think I'm gonna put it there. But again, like, I don't know. We have this huge charitability towards Asano because of how much we love him, and we know the scope of his work, so it's easy to see how this was aiding in his journey to making, say, Punpun or Solanin. I very much refrain from using the word bias because that has such a negative connotation. I say we have an overwhelming charitability towards these works, which I think is true.
I like that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Let's just, like I said, keep going with the Asano works. There's the one famous Asano work that I have not read, or maybe not so famous.
No, that's not famous at all. I think I'm one of the few people who does. I think it's one of the Asano's worst, I'm gonna be honest. It is a weird gag manga take on, I want to say, like, BL manga, boys love manga, kinda. Not really. It's very weird. It's interesting. I think people that really like Asano should check it out. Otherwise, just kind of skip it. I think I'd give it a high D. Honestly, I think it's Asano's worst.
I totally get that. I read, when going through all of the Asano works, I saw, Asano's take on a gag manga. I'm like, oh wow. For one, I honestly just don't love gag manga. And even
I do so.
Oh, so it must have hurt even more to have a type of manga you enjoy by one of your favorite mangaka, and it just fucking sucks. I don't know. Yeah, the gag thing is what put me off more, but like, that's my reason for like willing to put it so low, despite it being an Asano work. And we have 2 more still by Asano. 3. Yeah, that guy writes a lot. Let's start with Downfall. I love Downfall.
I bought it. So I've read it when it came out. I've bought it. I haven't read the physical release yet. I like it. I think it's a good companion to Punpun, where it's a work that is as dark as Punpun, and it's kind of like if Punpun was about growing up and like your teen years and early 20s, and kind of like this depression during that time, then Downfall is that depression, that crisis in the adult life in like your 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
So I do think it follows Punpun really nicely.
It's quite bleak too, like Punpun, and it doesn't seem to be aimed at, any optimistic note at the end. It is, this protagonist, just the gradual degradation of all the people around him because his weird relationship with his work, where he at once is obsessed with it, but on the other hand, doesn't really see why he does it anymore, but yet keeps going away at it, and that just degrades all of his social bonds, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And yeah, it's much more, on the nose than say Punpun, which is like much more coded in, symbolism, and you really got to work a little more to get to what it's trying to say. Downfall is a little less so, but it's still phenomenal. Like you said, it is a great compendium to Punpun, and I never thought of it in like the lens of, maybe a more mature kind of Punpun. So I think that's actually a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. As for rating, I don't know. But just talking a little bit, I think yes, because it is more condensed than Punpun. It really it's good that it is on the nose, or it's excusable that it is on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one volume.
Yeah.
I give it an A or an S. Low S to high A.
Yeah. I'm thinking I might have ranked Arigatou higher than Downfall, but I think Downfall, interestingly, is one of those manga that I just keep thinking back on, and it just gets better in my head, and I think I might need to reread it. I'm willing to give it that low S.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Next we got... Let's just do Solanin. Like, to me, if I'm going to be honest, it's an easy S+, if we're going to be honest here.
I'm willing to give it an S+. To me, I think it does things better than Punpun. Overall, I don't think it's better than Punpun. I think it does some things better than Punpun. And in general, I relate more to Solanin. I always say that Solanin is kind of like the manga that I relate to the most. I relate with pretty much every character, and I related more when I read it first. I was like early 20s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found the relatability in Solanin is what drives it, because I don't know, just the dynamic between Solanin and her boyfriend. She's
not called Solanin.
What?
She's not called Solanin.
Sorry, I've totally forgotten her name. I can't believe I just got caught in 4K not knowing her name. Because Solanin's the name of the band, question mark?
The song.
Oh, they only get the song.
Damn.
I missed on this one hard.
I was watching your Asano list today because I hadn't watched it before. Sorry. I was watching it today, and I saw you saying him and Solanin. I was like...
But you know what the worst part is? No one corrected me in the video, and that video has over 1,000 views now. So I'm feeling pretty good.
No, it's fine.
Do enlighten me though. What is her name?
Mako.
Mako. Okay. I find it so difficult to keep track of names in a
it's not
lot of
shaming
these
you.
drama seinen. But no, don't worry. No shame.
I'm really bad with names.
Thank you for helping me, because otherwise I would have went the rest of my life looking like an idiot to anyone that's actually read Solanin. Anyways, the main point I was going to... you know what? Fuck, I'm continuing to call her Solanin now just for the meme.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Solanin and her boyfriend... Okay, no, I can't do it now because I'm too self-aware. The main dynamic between the female lead and the male lead, I love, because she is willing to just risk it all to have her kind of freedom. She kind of quits her job because she's unhappy with it. But that puts a lot of pressure on the boyfriend then, who is, loves his 9-to-5 as much as one could, but does have the kind of background aspiration to do the band thing, and that's why they do commit to it like the once a month forever. And I don't know, just the kind of strictness of him versus the kind of more freeness of Solanin. I love that dynamic. And I don't know, the characters are very intimately written. I feel a deep connection when I read this manga, and I think that's why this is one of the few manga to make me cry for what happens around the halfway point.
Yeah.
So in terms of that kind of relatability, and also just the very much the musician part speaks to me, because that's also a big thing that I'm into as well, creating music and trying to balance that with something that's more financially secure is something that I'm frequently thinking of, and that also kind of addresses that too, how much freedom should we allow ourselves if it puts us at risk, financially, blah blah blah. Anyways, S+ for me.
Yeah, I'm willing to give it, especially because Solanin is the manga. I think it's the second manga that I read the most, because it was the first manga that I bought physically. so I had it on the shelf and I read it a lot. That's why I remember the names of all the characters, or at least most of the characters. I read it so much.
I might reread this one as well too. Like Asano works have like that characteristic that they're just so easy to kind of just sit back and flip through them. Maybe that's actually not entirely true, because Punpun and Downfall are not so easy to flip through like that. But
yeah, but the Solanin and the one shots are a bit easier.
Yeah, and Dead Demons. This very much. Asano kind of has two sides. He has like the really dark and depressing stream of thought, but then he has that more lighthearted and relatable stream of thought as well. So, pick your poison. I like both, so I like to mix my poisons, I guess.
Yeah.
And then all that's left is Nijigahara Holograph. And, I've only talked to like one other person that's actually read it, J-Dog, and I just don't like it. I just don't get it, I guess, more than anything. I read this, and this won him an award, so I was, going in with quite high expectations, but when I read it, I'm confused. I feel like it doesn't come together in a nice way. I really feel like it was Asano trying to show off, and I think that comes through a lot, and it makes it difficult to read. I'm not huge on this manga, but I'd like to know what you think of it.
So I read this a while ago. This was the time where I read like volume to volume of Asano, so I don't remember much of it. I reread half of it very recently, just I think the first half of it. I get what you mean. It is more confusing. It reminds me of Punpun has a lot of weird imagery to it. A lot of like absurd things happening. Nijigahara Holograph is kind of like Asano trying to dabble into that for the first time. I think it is visually very interesting. And I think that more so than the actual stories.
Yeah, it is definitely the birthing ground of that kind of more symbolically driven narrative that he gets very comfortable with in Goodnight Punpun, but as it exists in Nijigahara Holograph, it is simply just a confusing mess, and I kind of want to throw it in the D.
Sure. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'll give it a high D. You were pretty adamant that, Onazari, what is this called?
Ozanari.
Ozanari,
I think it's Ozanari-kun.
Yeah, you were quite adamant that was the worst, so, I'll make sure that statement remains true, and I'll give Nijigahara Holograph one above it.
All right.
And so finally, Asano is off the list. Well, on the list, I guess, more specifically. And it's looking good.
Yeah, we have some Bs already.
Yeah, finally. Unfortunately, we still have quite a bit, so let's move on.
Yeah.
I guess we'll do another quick one for you. Dorohedoro.
Oh, yeah, for me, Dorohedoro would be an S+. It is my all-time favorite manga.
Yeah.
I've talked about it. I've written reviews. I've done videos. So I could spend another hour talking about it. What I really love the most, I think it's the characters. I think it has one of the best casts, one of the fun characters, and the way they interact, like the factions, because we don't really get like the good guys. At first, it may seem like we're getting the good guys being Nikaido and Kaiman, and the bad guys being the Han family. But once the story kind of starts happening, and you start get like 2 volumes or so into it, you start to understand that this is not about good characters and bad characters. It's about like 3 or 4 groups of characters who all have different goals that contrast with each other, but all have their own like reasonings, and none of them are really bad, none of them are really good, and they just go to town with each other. It's really fun. The final act of it is a bit messy. There's some backstage reasons as to why, which I'm not really gonna get too much into it, but it does get a bit messy. It does drag too much, but I think it ends nicely still. And again, it's my favorite manga.
Yeah.
So
I've only read 4 volumes of it, and what stopped me from getting more was that they're quite expensive. I suppose I could read through scans, but I will, I'll say when I read those 4 volumes, like it was like my top 5. Like they were excellently done. Characters nailed it. What I really loved is the world. I thought it was just visually so interesting, the world that the Kiyuhashida. How do you say the name?
Yoshida, I think.
Okay, I won't say it ever again, but there it is.
Q.
Yeah,
you can
Q.
call her Q.
Yeah, yeah. Q's art is stunning. The world that she builds is incredible. The character cast, incredible. I do wish I read more. I'm willing to give it that S plus, man. I really think that, as much as I love Goodnight Punpun, there are at least a few parts in it I can point to that were just a little slower. Dorohedoro, based off literally just those 4 volumes, like just kept up the momentum and the interest in the, nothing but a positive experience through those 4 volumes. I am interested in getting more eventually, but we'll see what happens. I was slightly disappointed by the anime, though. I will say I haven't actually watched it, by the way. Tried to watch the first episode, and I've seen the trailers and stuff. And a lot of the allure to Dorohedoro is that really gritty and gripping art style. And it's just noticeably absent. I think the CGI cleans it up too much. It gives it a kind of squeaky clean quality that I think takes away from what's very important to Dorohedoro, that kind of gritty and that really aids to the violence when it's in there, and just how dirty and dark the world is. But yeah,
I think the anime does backgrounds nicely. The characters is what it felt. I've only watched the first 2 episodes of the anime as well. Can't speak too much about it, but I did like the backgrounds. They are still better in the manga. They're not better than the manga, but I think they were okay. And the thing you did say about in Punpun losing momentum, that kind of does happen in Dorohedoro as well. Again, towards the thing about Dorohedoro is that I think 1/3 of the manga is the final arc, and that because I think Ayashida was planning to end it 20 volumes, and it actually ends in 23. Which the last 3 volumes are actually really bulky as well, so it does drag a bit. The last arc is insane, however, and it can be super confusing towards the middle because the mystery does not get solved in like a nice way. It gets very messy, but I think by being longer, in taking a longer time to really digest everything of the mystery, it is better that way.
Okay. So, this concludes the first part of the video. I hope everyone liked it.
Please do.
Subscribe to
come
Manga
back for
Crash.
part 2.
Come back for part 2. Look at this. Look at this. We still got lots of good stuff down here. Villain Saga, Hellsing,
We do.
Mushishi,
We
No
have
Longer Humans.
Satoshi-kun. That's a big name, right?
Right? Big name. Please, come back. Part 2. Part 2, anyone? Please? We'll do Berserk again. Please, guys, just watch part 2. For real, though, thanks for everyone for watching. Thanks for Manga Crash for coming on here. It's been a blast. It certainly doesn't feel like 2 hours.
No, but it has been.
Yes, and that's why we're wrapping up the video. So until, I don't know, part 2, whenever you guys see part 2, we'll see ya when you see ya. Peace.